Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of VENDO Velocity. If this is your first time tuning into Velocity, VENDO Velocity is a weekly live podcast in which we talk about the latest platform updates and strategic initiatives on the Walmart.com, Amazon.com, and TikTok shop sides of our business here at VENDO. Today, we have a very special presentation and podcast that we're going to be giving to you, given by our copy and creative team here at VENDO. And all three of these ladies have not been on the VENDO Velocity podcast before, so would like to welcome them and hopefully give them a great experience where they're willing to come back and share some insights with us. But before we do, would like to hop into some introductions first. If this is your first time tuning into Velocity, I'm Delaney. I'm our Director of Amazon Account Strategist here at VENDO, also leading our TikTok shop initiative. But excited to go around the horn here, first starting with Emily Beauman with some introductions.
Hey, yeah, I'm Emily. I am the lead graphic designer here at VENDO. I've been in the e-com world since about 2017. I've been with VENDO for a couple years, and it's great to be here.
Perfect. Meg?
Hi, I'm Meg O'Brien. I'm the lead writer on the content marketing team here at VENDO. I've been here for a couple years as well, and VENDO is where I started working in e-commerce. So same deal, excited to be here and dig into it.
And then Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I am a photographer and graphic designer here at VENDO. Just like Meg, this is my first kind of job in e-commerce, and I've been here since 2020.
There we go. All right, some tenured people on the line here. Mm-hmm. But yes, as you see here, we have a bit of everything as far as representation from our content marketing and creative teams on the call, from graphic design to photography to writing. So all around, we're going to get some great insights here. And the topic for today, which we've heard a lot about in more recent weeks, is brand stores. And brand stores are often a part of Amazon that a lot of brands don't pay as much attention to, because they'll say, who really goes to the brand store to make a purchase? Why is it actually important? I've never clicked on that buy line within the PDP. Well, you'll learn quickly that you're actually not correct in some of those assumptions, because the data does show us that the brand store is highly interacted with, and a decent percentage of sales do stem from the brand store itself. So nobody better than our content marketing and creative teams to give us some insight into some of the strategies that go into developing these stores. So without further ado, Emily, I'll start off with you. What are some of these key strategies that brands can implement to optimize their brand stores for both better visibility and better sales?
Yeah, for sure. So I love this topic. Brand stores are actually, they're so interesting because it's sort of like this hidden treasure trove that Amazon's kind of given us, that you're right, like people aren't really talking about that much. But like you essentially, once you hop into the brand store development, you kind of have to wear the hat of a front-end UX developer. Like you're essentially designing an entire website. And so there's a lot of things you need to account for to really get the most out of it. And like you're saying, like if you do this right, you can get a lot out of it. Some of the starting strategies that I would say is we really try to make the brand store be as similar as possible to your own D2C. Like what does your .com look like? We want to emulate that because that's automatically going to build some trust. Like, okay, yep, I see like this is the same thing going on from the consumer's point of mind. Like, okay, I see the legitimacy here. And like this includes like tabs, page layouts, hierarchy, the overall look and feel, especially for starting out. And as you kind of develop more, there are some Amazon specific tweaks that you can make just for the Amazon audience versus the D2C audience. But I think one of the most important things to focus on, and this you can see a lot in just regular website UX as well, is sort of the two audiences you want to gear this towards. There's what I like to call the researchers versus the focused buyers. So like, for instance, for me, I'm like a focused buyer. Like if I want something, like if I'm going to get my son a birthday present, I want to get him like a baseball bat and a couple of like, baseballs. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's see, the first thing, if I have to get my shovel out and start digging for information, I'm just going to go to the next product that's going to give it to me on a silver platter. My sister, on the other hand, is like, okay, how many balls is this going to come with? What's the material? Is this standard size? Is this, like, is this a T-ball? Like, does it come with a stand? Like all this information. And you really want to see the value of both of these people, because, you know, Amazon's a quick, it's just a quick system altogether. You hop on your phone, order something, it's going to be there in 2 days. So you want to cater to that audience while also catering to those researchers who are going to spend the time, find the information they want, and then be like a really bought-in consumer and a bought-in customer long term.
And I want to touch on that a little more from a data perspective too, Emily, because what you're saying is really important there. And we see it through search query performance on the Amazon side, in that if you look at things like click share and add to cart share, you'll see that people will be adding to cart and then they will come back later on to make a purchase. So while people like Emily and myself are probably like, okay, let me find that baseball bat, let me find that baseball, and let me purchase that within 20 seconds, there are a decent amount of people who are doing that research, and the data does show you that if you look at search query performance and you look at the relationship between add to carts and click share versus what your purchase share actually looks like, your add to cart share might actually be higher because they're not ultimately making the purchase, but they are interested enough to add that to your cart. So again, you're leaning towards where the data is telling you, but you can get a lot of insight on your shopper for your specific brand through analyzing that data. But Emily, back to you. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, totally. No, exactly. That's a really good point. And so, yeah, I kind of just like want to emphasize, like, you want to put in like this is like this. You can make as many pages as you want within brand store. You can give as much information. You can really sell like all these incredible features that your product has, but always make sure as you're building out your story, like, don't forget the table of contents, right? Like, offer shortcuts, because there's going to be people who want to go and see like, okay, do I want to lose weight or do I want to build muscle? I want to build muscle. Great, cool. That's where I'm going. And you can give them that information. Just always offer shortcuts.
Yes, and I really wanted to kind of speak on the importance of visuals. The audience is going to connect with visuals before anything else. It's the start of that seller-consumer relationship. Product photography is that key driver for store engagement. It's that first impression. The consumer is going to process visual content before anything else. So you only have a few seconds to really grab their attention and really convince them, like, why should, you know, they buy this exact product? And, you know, that's why you got to have that high quality, because if it's poor quality visuals, that's going to diminish, and it's going to have that perceived value if it's not the best quality.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point, Elizabeth. And just on the fact of product visuals specifically, if we look at the data within the brand stores, you will see that the homepage is going to be what's most interacted with. So I know that's where a lot of the time spent by our content marketing and creative teams go to, because you want to optimize that as visually as possible, but also make it clickable enough so that it is incentivizing purchase. So Emily, talk a little bit about the value of that homepage and some of the best practices of not just the homepage, but some of the other tabs and how we look at developing those.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. So for a homepage, for optimizing that, obviously, yes, you want to have like these amazing visuals that Elizabeth was saying. You want to be able to thoughtfully lay these out, though, as well. This is going to make sense for the consumer, for getting to the products that they want and also that you want them to see. So the first thing that we always do for anybody that we help optimize is on the homepage, you should include like a follow us CTA, either at the very top of the page. You can just add a little bar, or you can add it to the header at the very top. There's like the head banner. Add a follow us CTA, have a little arrow pointing. There's a little follow button that you can click, and that actually, once the consumer clicks on that, they're going to get updates about your store regularly. That's going to give you sort of a lot more control over your audience and be able to keep reminding them like what's in store, what's changing, anything new, any feature deals they're going to be doing. So that automatically is going to get that little buy-in. So it's a quick win adding a follow us CTA. Also, having some type of like a brand-wide video or a clickable banner showing like newer featured products, that's always something that you should keep on a homepage. That's something you can have like rotating at the very top. You know, like for Prime Day, you're going to have something for Valentine's Day, for Christmas, like all the different holidays. Like try to keep that updated, try to keep that visually appealing, and have that linking to products so you can get that win right away. As far as like other tabs that you can include, always a shop all page, of course. Like I feel like that goes without saying, but within that, we really like to break it up so it's a little bit more easily digestible, so people can get to the categories that they want. And an About Us page, really helps with the brand credibility. As we all know, Amazon's very bloated and is going to have a lot of cheap knockoff people trying to sell the same product as you, but not as good, right? So having an About Us is going to like build that trust, that legitimacy, is really going to educate them on why you're doing what you're doing and why they need to buy from you. So an About Us page, FAQs kind of plays into the same thing. Let's answer their questions right away. Let's give them that legitimacy. And you can also add a page to boost your subscribe and save option. And that is a huge feature that's great for, again, having that repeat customer. You can actually make a page that sort of advertise that, educates them on what you can do with a subscribe and save, and then have all of the products there so they can easily see what they can get regularly on their doorstep. We also, if you have like a strong social media presence, if you really want them to get an eye on that, you can link your socials actually to the brand store so that like your Instagram posts are populating. That is a really strong option so that you can just get those visuals moving more for you than if they were just staying, you know, just straight on Instagram. But yeah, overall, a follow option. Having great imagery that rotates, that is relevant to the stuff that you're trying to push within that season, having FAQs about us, and having subscribe and save pretty loudly shouted on the store.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously a lot that Emily just went over, so I want to stay on a few of those topics a bit more. One, the follow us button. As Emily was saying, you can communicate with your customers. Amazon has sort of started to revamp manage your customer engagement. They've gotten rid of it for the time being, but we do think that they will end up bringing it back just because we know that the attribution, the sales attribution specifically, wasn't the strongest through manage your customer engagement. But how that worked is you were able to set up emails that went directly to these followers announcing either a new product launch or maybe a deal that you were running for that specific new item. So you had this group of loyal followers to your brand that is already connecting with your brand store, can follow you directly through your brand store. And now you're able to push out specific communication directly to this group who, you know, if they are following you, they're probably going to want to purchase from your brand. They're going to have a higher conversion rate overall. So that's one thing. And then on the topic of holiday brand stores and really just any seasonal brand stores, this is where it's super important, as Emily was saying in her previous point, to align with your D2C messaging. Because we often see that and this is something that I won't touch on too much because I know Meg will touch on brand voice, but overall, if you're speaking a different language on D2C than you are on Amazon, and the consumer is familiar with your brand, let's say on D2C or off platform, even if they come across like a Facebook Meta ad, Instagram, etc., they're probably going to be confused, and that's going to create a poor customer experience. So it's very important that all of those different aspects are fully aligned in terms of the messaging off platform and your messaging on Amazon. And then the very last thing that I'll touch on is just bundle opportunities. We've seen virtual bundles become a bigger emphasis for Amazon because of the fact that they show up higher on the product detail pages now. So because of that, our content marketing and creative teams also sometimes, depending on how many bundles the brand has live, has a separate tab for bundle opportunities specifically, which we know helps with average order value, increases your overall basket size, etc. So just other things to think about in terms of, yes, you probably have a very wide collection of products, sometimes maybe even like 50 plus products, and you can't showcase all of those in cross-sell opportunities on your PDP. So a brand store is a great area for that cross-catalog exposure. But transitioning over to our next question here, and that's really around branding and storytelling. And I think that often, sometimes brands ask, well, how much do I balance storytelling and brand building against let's create a brand store that's strictly optimized for conversion? So Emily, touch on this a little bit. How important is brand building and storytelling within a brand store? And what are some of the most effective ways that brands can convey some of their identity on Amazon through brand stores?
Yeah, for sure. Branding and storytelling are essential. Like they are going to engage the customer and they're going to build that loyalty to keep them coming back. So highlighting your brand values, and especially like the popularity that you have, like any type of media shout outs that you have, if you were featured in anything, that is part of your brand story too, right? And that is going to build legitimacy at the same time. So like building that emotional connection and that trust, I think is totally doable while also still having it be optimized. It's just sort of what we were saying, like build your story, but like make sure you've got those shortcuts in, like add your table of contents. So especially on the homepage, having, you know, like visuals to draw you in. And I know Elizabeth is going to touch on that in a minute too. So having those visuals and having that legitimacy. I think, you know, having a brand story, like an about page, really can help you sell as much as you want of like who you are, and have that engagement. And having even opportunities within an about page to click on a product to send you straight to like that buying funnel, like that, that I think is really going to serve you the best, because the people who do want to learn more about you are going to have that opportunity without taking away the chance to click on something and actually fulfill that order, to actually get that process going. But honestly, I feel like a lot of brands do a really strong start on their D2C. I think that is the great starting point. Like you're building a website within Amazon. And yes, you do need to optimize it for sales, but with all of the, like, if you've got the brand legitimacy, right? Like let's tell people about it. You've got a great product. You have something to be excited about. So I think don't be shy about that. Don't just take the shortcut into just having huge text, having the product, have shop now, shop now, shop now everywhere. Like you can stand on the strength of your brand and really show that you're confident in who you are, and that's going to bring them in. And I know, yeah, so maybe the D2C, and I know Elizabeth, you've got some points on that too.
Yes, so bringing in that visual connect, lifestyle imagery is very important for, you know, brand storytelling. You know, having a lifestyle photo shoot for your products, I think is extremely beneficial, because having shots of your products being used and interacted with, it's, you know, it helps clients get that feel of your product and help them understand the scale and the sizing of what they're going to be buying. Even if, you know, you're under resourced and you don't have the option to get a lifestyle photo shoot of your products, you know, that's why it is crucial to have just the standard, like high quality, like main image product photo, because we can take that and we can put it into a mock-up lifestyle, which is AKA a photoshopped lifestyle image. And so we can pull a high quality, you know, scene and then Photoshop it in.
Yeah, and then I would say from the copy angle as well, you kind of alluded to this already, Delaney, but like really making sure there's a defined brand voice through the store, ideally through all the content on the PDPs, back to the D2C as well. The same way that you want your images, your typography, all of those visual elements to be cohesive and tell the story and illustrate the personality, you also want your copy to feel that way as well. So if you're a brand that hasn't done that, you know, defining what words really speak to and define the brand, I think would be really helpful. And then it's kind of reiterating what's been said, but just really, really leaning into the story. The brand store gives a lot of breathing room to tell that story where you don't get that opportunity many other places on Amazon. So crafting what that story is, really building out that about page throughout the story, highlighting what sets your products apart. You know, there may be a bunch of supplements on Instagram or whatever it is, not on Instagram, I'm sorry, on Amazon or whatever it is you're selling, but your story is what is going to set you apart. There's only one brand that has your particular story. So I think leaning into that is extremely important.
Yeah, Meg, and let's talk about the user experience a bit more. So when looking at just the user experience in general, what elements should brands be prioritizing when designing their brand store to, one, enhance customer engagement, but two, increase conversion rates, as you alluded to in your previous response?
Yeah, I think there are a few. One that just continues to be more and more important is video. There was a study done like a year or two ago where it says like almost 70% of consumers now would rather learn about a product through a video versus like a text-based infographic or something like that. So I think prioritizing that around the brand store is really important. Another element would be making the navigation as easy as possible. Make it easy for your consumers to buy, make it easy for them to learn. It kind of ties into what Emily was saying earlier on about your researchers and your focus buyers, but thinking about how a customer would want to look for or shop for your products. Like if you're selling skincare products, for example, maybe outlining those by step, like if they're looking for a cleanser or moisturizer, as well as maybe like a goal, like clearing acne or targeting signs of aging, something like that. Just don't make it hard. You want it to be easy for them to go through your store and just really enjoy the experience as much as possible. And I would also say optimizing for mobile. So much shopping is done on a phone now. And I think, creating a store, it's very easy to be in there and looking at, your large desktop screen and how beautiful it looks there. But if it's clunky or if the text is really small on mobile, if it's just not as enjoyable an experience, you don't want to give anyone a reason to leave your store and not convert. So I think just thinking about how someone is going to shop your store essentially is what's most important.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we'll try to push is like refining and kind of paring down your actual copy, having it be less words, saying things more concisely so you can have that be bigger. That's a lot of the times what we do, like even on the PDP, anytime we have a lifestyle imagery paired with text, you want to, even if you're looking at it on the desktop, like obviously I'm not designing stuff on my phone, I'm designing it on my desktop computer, but you have to always be looking at it through the lens of like, there's going to be mobile shoppers, right? Like, I'm always on my phone doing Amazon shopping. If I'm on my computer doing it, then it's like, okay, this is going to be a big purchase, right? Like you're going to get a lot of mobile shoppers. So always make sure that you keep that accounted for. For the brand store, it's really nice is it does auto convert it to mobile. Like it'll rearrange the modules. So if you have just like a small technical thing, if you have two of them side by side in the desktop version, they'll just automatically convert it to be, one on top of the other. So there's just, factors that you should always be looking for when you're actually building out the visuals of the brand store. You have a desktop preview and you have a mobile preview right there. So just always make sure you like click in between the two of them. And another thing they should always be looking out for is just make sure that you are always pulling the consumer to the next thing. On every page, you should have some type of link that's going to link to another part of the brand store. Having a full page of links to different product pages is great, but that is going to take them off the brand store. And that's, going to take them into the ecosystem that is just Amazon as opposed to your specific website that you've built. So always having some like, click to see more about us, click to see where this product can be incorporated into your routine, like what Meg was saying on your product. You could have it, you could have, okay, I need to target like, this acne, I want this product, but it's actually part of this routine. So you can click to this, right? Like you can always circle them somewhere else. So always having a link to a different page is going to be really helpful. So like what we were saying, build out your story, but don't forget all those shortcuts.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Emily. And just speaking a little bit about what both you and Meg were saying as relates to mobile versus desktop traffic, again, the analytics speak for itself. So you can look in your business reports in Seller Central and you can see what the percentage of sales is that's coming from mobile versus desktop. And you can understand, okay, am I a mobile friendly and mobile first brand? Most of the time you are going to be, but it really depends on the percentages. And you might see for your specific brand that maybe 75 to 80% of the traffic is primarily driven from mobile. So having those checks in place is really going to be important there. Mm-hmm. And then while I'm talking specifically about the data analytics, I did want to touch on a few updates that Amazon has made to brand stores in December of last year. So if you look back at your insights on the brand store, and this can be found directly within the ad console, but you'll see in the ad console under your brand store's content, a few new metrics, one of them being average bounce rate, and the second one being average dwell time. And these are both important because one, for average dwell time, helps you to understand how long are customers actually staying on your store for, and then average bounce rate is how often are these visitors leaving without interacting. And you could see that down to the page. So this is really important because you could see, one, how is my brand performing overall in terms of their dwell time. And if we're doing things like updating for holiday content or updating for Prime Day or any seasonal event, you can look back at how did my average dwell time and bounce rate change versus the previous period in which I maybe had more of an evergreen store. And in other words, is that having a positive impact on, are these updates moving us in the positive direction, not just in terms of sales, because you can track that, what is the sales that's coming in during this time, but also how are people interacting with my store during this time, and is that improving? So we could have a whole other session on just analytics itself, but did want to mention those two new metrics that have come about. You could see, again, your organic traffic that would be directly on the PDP within the byline, or your paid traffic, which is coming from sponsored brands. So understanding your mix between organic versus advertising, you're probably going to be surprised with how many people are actually coming to your brand store through the PDP itself. So that's another important metric. But overall, when we're talking about analytics at a larger scale, we've seen that, between 10 to 20% for our higher performing brands of overall sales are driven from the brand store. And these customers have interacted with the brand store. And I think that would surprise a lot of people that percentage of people are actually going to this brand store, doing that research. And again, it's similar to when you're walking in a store, right? You hear all these stats about how people have their phone open, their apps open when they're in a store to do additional research. Well, people have their brand stores, and they're looking at your other products before they go ahead and make that purchase. So they're leaning on that store for information there. But that's a little bit on the data standpoint. If you have any questions, please let us know, because as you can tell, we all geek out on that aspect. But we did also want to talk about competition, because I think that that's something that we're always on top of, because of the fact that in all of the spaces we play in, competition isn't going away. If anything, it continues to increase. And you'll see in looking at tools like Product Opportunity Explorer for a specific niche, how many competitors are actually in your space versus how many there were 365 days ago. And for some niches, that's a big number of competitors that are now coming into the space. So Emily, talk a little bit about some of these more innovative tactics that brands can use to differentiate themselves and stand out in their overall niche.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like what you were just saying, like Amazon is getting really bloated these days, right? Like everybody is putting stuff on Amazon. It's getting bloated, especially with like cheap knockoffs, things that aren't going to be, as good as your product. And I feel like the consumer in 2024, like we can immediately suss out what's real and what's fake. People notice enthusiasm. People notice when their friend tells you like how great something really works. And so I just would push you to like get people talking about it and take those people talking about it, put it everywhere. And so I'm talking UGC, partnering with content creators, partnering with real people, getting that real footage of people using your product and putting that up. People really do like to see that like underproduced look, because it does feel more real, because it's, it's somebody really in their bathroom. They're not on, they're not on the TV with some polished hairstyle with a set piece. They're using your product within the context. And that's what people want to see. People can suss out overproduced. They can see what has been staged. So get your product in the environments it's actually going to be used in, record that and use that, because that's going to be gold in your brand store, and obviously like in your product pages and your D2C even, right? Like getting that, I think even like having features on the homepage, you could even have a whole page dedicated to it on the brand store, right? Like you have so much room to experiment with. So yeah, I would say get people talking about your product, put that content out for everyone to see.
Yeah, and I also think in addition to that, in terms kind of similar to like the UGC, and like I think people really want to build connections with brands. They want to feel like trusting and like an emotional almost connection. So at risk of sounding like a broken record again, like that storytelling aspect, I think that's why it's so important. So again, leaning into that I think will start to set some stores apart. And then additionally, if there's any endorsements that can be added to the store, I think that can be really helpful, because it is something where your product or your brand has already been set apart. If there's any publications that have featured it, any awards that you've won, I think that's a great way for people to also like invest trust in your brand versus just having to like kind of take your word for it, or like look at how nice maybe it looks. It's something that's a little bit more concrete. So if you have that, I think that's a great thing to include.
No, that's a great point, Megan. I think that taking a step back and understanding how people are also getting to these brand stores, as I spoke about in the data portion, is important, right? Because we haven't even talked about sponsored brand ads, but that's something that our content marketing and creative team is also optimizing for, because that's a point of interaction in which, yes, you have this sponsored brand ad that drives to the brand store. So in things like UGC, et cetera, that Emily and Meg are talking about, Amazon is now allowing vertical video. So you could use your UGC in your sponsored brand ads. They'll see this ad that has the UGC video there. And for that reason, by displaying that authenticity, you'll often see some higher click-through rates as well. So also understanding how to optimize your sponsored brand ads is a whole other topic in itself. But in some of what Meg and Emily were just mentioning about being able to tell your brand story as much as you can through that primary image that you have and the copy is increasingly important to differentiate yourself from the competition. But I do want to just end here on talking about some advice and as well as some emerging trends. So let's start with some of the trends first. Obviously, Amazon continues to evolve. Every single year, we see new and new updates. There's even some brands that have access to newer pages within brand stores through an advertising feature that they're able to have. But let's take a step back and understand what are some of the emerging trends, Meg, that you see shaping the future of Amazon brand stores, and how can brands adapt to stay ahead of some of those trends?
I think this goes back to what we were just talking about as well. A big thing that we're starting to see being rolled out is Amazon Live on stores now. So those live streams that you're able to shop from. And again, it's really mirroring what we're seeing on other platforms. Like there's TikTok Shop, there's, a whole commerce piece of Instagram now. And it's, again, as Emily was saying earlier, like content made by people like standing in their closets or in their kitchen, like showing you how a product works. So I think just more and more of that is going to start appearing on brand stores, as you were even saying, like the vertical video piece for ads. I'm sure like there'll be more like options for tiles maybe where we'd be able to get that on a store. So I think if brands are keeping abreast of those trends, of the UGC trends just generally, then I think that will put them in a good position for when I feel like that eventually becomes a larger part of the store puzzle.
Totally agree. Okay, so now I'm a brand that's sold on updating my brand store after hearing you three ladies speak. I wasn't before. So what advice do you have for me? Elizabeth, I'll start with you first. I want to build out my brand store, enhance my Amazon presence. I'm just starting out. What should I be focused on?
So for your brand store, you definitely will need the home page, the Shop All page, and the About Us page. And on your home page, make sure to establish your brand with really strong visuals.
I would say beyond that, no store is going to be one size fits all. So really thinking about who you're speaking to and catering to that when building out what tabs you want to include, what content you want to include. And I think from the insights that we're starting to get to, like looking at those and then evolving your brand store around that, seeing what's working, where people are shopping, how they're shopping, thinking about who your buyers are. Amazon's giving you free range on the brand store. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to be creative and kind of run with a lot of different content opportunities. But with that being said, always keeping in mind at the end of the day, like how you can best sell your products on Amazon. And I would add, just like from a copy piece, a quick aside of like looking at your copy, looking through the Amazon terms and making sure there's not anything that's going to prevent it from publishing, because you want, it won't be helpful if you can't get the store up for people to see. So things like Amazon doesn't like contact info. They don't like you including shipping info. So I would say just like making sure you're doing that quick check as well, so everything goes as seamlessly as possible.
Absolutely. And then I will add, of course, as I've talked about, just lean on the data. There's also a new beta report that's out within the brand stores called your store quality report. And what this does is it will take a snapshot of the latest report date that Amazon scans, and it will tell you, is your store quality rating high, medium, low, etc., and how has your dwell time averaged over the last 30 days. And I wouldn't say this if it weren't the case, but I will hold our team accountable that every single quality report I've looked at, we have had a high rating, which of course, as you could tell by the knowledge on this call with these three ladies, our team does a great job there. But this is just something that you're able to continue to keep track of and understand, is my quality rating of my store high? But even if it is high, how am I consistently iterating on key periods like some of the ones mentioned on this call today? But thank you three for joining us. I think this was a very insightful podcast that we've had here. And I hope to have each of you back hopefully later on this year when we start to update brand stores even more for these seasonal times.
Yeah, for sure. It's been awesome chatting with you guys. It's been super fun. And yeah, you didn't scare us away. Our first podcast, we made it through it.
There we go. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
thanks for tuning in.
Thanks. Yeah,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.